They say small business is the backbone of America. So what's the best way to support a small business? It is to learn more about them and share with your family and friends. We interview founders from across the world who have started and scaled their business through the ups and downs, long hours, and the rewards that come from sacrificing their time to build their business. Welcome to First to Arrive, Last to Leave, the journey of an entrepreneur.
All right, welcome to another episode of First to Arrive, Last to Leave. I'm Erin Krzyzek.
I'm Courtney Radloff.
And today we have another very special guest with us today, Ari Krzyzek. Did I get it, Ari?
You got it.
Yay! Thank you. All right. I got to know how much I practiced this before. Okay, I'm so excited. Episode's over. We're done. No, just kidding. All right. So Ari is the CEO and head of strategy at Chykalophia, a company that's been around for 13 years. Ari, is it California you're based out of? Did I get that right?
Chicago.
Oh,
awesome.
Starts with C. But Ari, before we jump in, let's talk about Chykalophia and tell us a little bit about what it is and what you all do.
Yeah, sure thing. Chykalophia is a minority woman-owned web agency. We're based here in Evanston, about 30 minutes from Chicago, if you know where it is. It's near, Northwestern College, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what we do is all things on the web. We often work with women-led brands, those who are in B2B tech, as well as femtech direct-to-consumer, on all things on the web. So be it, creating a scalable e-commerce website or making a high performance web marketing website, or you actually want to build a new product or an MVP version of your product for web applications. So think of community projects or, learning management system, anything with a dashboard on the web. So we do all of that from strategy, design, all the way to development and growth support.
Awesome.
Wow. So you've been doing this for a while. I would love to know where you were in the process where you decided, you know what, I want to start on my own and build my own business.
Okay, that is going to be an interesting
Good.
story.
The more interesting, the better.
I started off as a graphic designer. I was born and raised in Bali, Indonesia. And when I graduated from art school, I just wanted to be a graphic designer, right? So once I get the actual job, which I think at that time I was like, yay, I finally become this graphic designer. I didn't realize that there's so much more out there until, my husband, back then we were still engaged, right? He just kind of curious about my interest in the design world and wanting to really understand, like, how much do I really get paid? So he asked me that question. It's like, hey, Ari, how much do you actually get paid? And for him, he's an American, right? He was born in Poland, but his mindset around all things related to opportunities and, internet gigs and all that kind of stuff is completely different than what I have envisioned back then. But he brought up a really good idea in terms of what opportunities are waiting for me beyond the things that I've known. So when I told him I was only paid $250, he immediately opened up his laptop and said, okay, take a look at all these amazing gigs online, right? You could do a lot more if you want to. And that really triggered something in me. And I realized I wanted more. I wanted to really explore what else is out there for all things related to design. Now, fast forward a few years later, when I got married with my husband here in Chicago, he asked me yet another big important question. He asked me, hey, Ari, would you want to build a business with me? And I was like, sure, what could go wrong?
Yeah.
That was the start. And I did not know what I was getting myself into. There's a lot of things that could go wrong, especially when you're building, a business with your spouse.
Yeah. Okay. Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. So I was like, okay, we got to get into this then. I'm like, because there are so many people who want to build a business with their spouse. So obviously something has worked, but I'm going to bet there were some bumps along the way to get that to work. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes, definitely. When I mentioned earlier, I did not know what I was getting myself into. I literally did not know what I did not know, right? So I was just getting in with, really good intention. I'm going to work with my husband and then figure things out together. What we didn't know is that we were really trying to, push each other to do the best of our work. But that ended up translating of us not having any boundaries at all. So I was telling him how to code because he is the one taking care of all the tech stuff, right? All things related to development. And he was telling me how to design. So there's this like big clash in terms of like responsibilities, who's managing what. We honestly have no idea what we were doing in our first few years of building the business together. So everything was a hot mess until we have our mentor. So that was the beginning of us learning about what, business one-on-one look like, what boundaries look like for us as, spouse, as well as, founders and co-workers together building this business. I feel like without those boundaries, we're probably not going to be, here today, still working together side by side alongside with, our 13 other team members.
So when did you go into the Goldman program? How does that transition? And what did you do it with your husband? Was your husband a part of it?
I was the one, working on the actual program under Goldman Sachs 10KSB program. My husband, Peter, opted out of that particular program, mainly because we were busy with a lot of different projects coming in. Mm-hmm. So I specifically entered that program alone because I needed to understand like what is the next step for my company. For the longest time, I avoided the title of CEO. And I was telling my husband, like, you go become the CEO. I'll just do all the creative thing. And he did tell me that, Ari, one day you're going to have to own the title. And I didn't know when that day would come until I gone through the 10KSB program from Goldman Sachs. To be honest, that particular program was a big slap in the face for me because I didn't realize how much that I didn't know when it comes to running a business. I didn't even realize I needed to have an exit plan. So that's how bad it was that I didn't realize how much information around business that I should probably have had an answer right before we hit the 10-year mark. But the 10KSB program, it was a really great program for me specifically because then I was able to understand like what's next for us, what the plan is going to be for us and the team, as well as the trajectory that we really want for growth. Everything just fall into pieces after that particular program, even though it was like a super intensive program. It truly helped me understand like what's next and how can I really own that particular title as the CEO.
So I think that's really incredible that your husband pushed you into that. Yeah. I love that side of it. I would love to know, you mentioned like kind of the 10-year mark. Were you guys, maybe you didn't have quite the exit plan, which is fine, but did you feel you had a pretty well-oiled machine from the business perspective? And even just, all right, so you're learning to work together. You got a mentor around 3 years in. You figured out kind of roles and how to navigate that world with your husband. Were you growing in a way that you were happy with it? It sounds like you had a team where it's like, okay, now we've got this down. Now we just need to refine things. Or was it kind of you were successful in spite of yourself? Do you know what I mean? Like you happened to get there, but it was a constant kind of figuring things out along the way. Does that make sense? Like was the business kind of where it was exhausting, or did you feel you were at a pretty good place going into Goldman?
That's a good question. I started the business in very unusual way, right? For some people, they, went in with the business and then they really have a lot more work that they put into it and then essentially doing it full time. In the first few years of our business, both of us, my husband and I, are in the company full time, but we realized that we really just need more marketing funds. So because in the beginning, we didn't really make a lot of money with the business, I ended up going full time with Sears Holding. So I was working, a 9-to-5 job while working on my own company as a part-time, and my husband was doing it full time. So after working with Sears Holding for about 4.5 years and doing my company part-time, I was then able to have, enough funds so that we can channel it into our company and use that for marketing purposes, whether it's, exhibiting at different conferences or, participating at different networking events, so on and so forth, to help build our network and the sales pipeline. When that feels ready, I ended up leaving my Sears job and then went in back full time with the company. And this is when we're probably at 5-year mark in the business, right? So I felt like the trajectory that we have in the beginning for the business is quite unusual, unless you are really in the company full time and you have that funds, whether it's through investment or from investors, or maybe you do have different grants and stuff like that. We didn't know all of those different resources in the beginning. Now I do. I wish that I could go back and redo them, but hey, I'm here just learning, what I know and just like applying to what I can for the business. But really looking at the growth that we have ever since I quit my corporate job, I know that there is, there's quite a pipeline and our business. And I knew that if I put more hours into the company, we will create more revenue and we'll be able to grow, bit by bit. And we did. So 2 years after I ended up joining back full time, we doubled our team members and also double our revenue for the first time. And we start seeing that trends repeated, for a couple of years until pandemic happened. So pandemic was really interesting for us because in the beginning of the pandemic year, we were losing a lot of our contracts, right? We were so excited about this contract, but pandemic happened. I feel like everybody was trying to, figure out what will be next for their business. Some of them ended up being, going bankrupt. Some of them figuring things out with pivoting and stuff like it. So it was understandable in the first couple of months, but as soon as people understand how to leverage their digital presence more, and then having, I guess, like more importance towards using and leveraging their website, business start to pick up, right? So in the beginning, it was weird and rough, but in the middle of pandemic, we're actually thriving. So yet again, we double our revenue as well as, doubling the amount of team member that we have.
So how has it been hiring staff to sort of take over in, like, are they in creative roles? What, with the 13 you said you have, or what do they each kind of, how are they participating in the business? The reason I asked that because you came in as the creative, and now are you delegating to them, or how does that work?
So we have different types of departments right now in Chykalophia. We have design team, development team, as well as marketing team. Essentially, the first two teams, which is the design and development teams, are our core team member. We wanted these teams to replace myself and also my husband, right? Because we were the developer and the designer working on the projects. Having these two separate teams really helped us to, have more hours and also more extra hands for us to work on a lot of different projects, whether they are, projects that needs both design and development, or it's just one or the other. So we were able to really expand our capabilities with the different designers and different developers that we have in our team. That was the start. I would say this starts in 2017. And then with marketing team, that only formed recently in the past, maybe couple of years, when we start developing a lot of our content. So we use a lot of content for marketing online, on LinkedIn, as well as helping them, helping us, put together our content into the book. So marketing team is fairly new for us, but it has been really helpful, just putting together a lot of different contents that we have and then help us market it in our different social channels or even, in-person events.
So I would love to go back to the creative side too, on the question of growing a team when you're the creative mind, because that's got to be, I mean, a lot of creativity there's process to it, but a lot of it is creativity, right? So how have you been able to, I love that you've thought about removing yourself from that side of things and having a team do it, but how have you managed that process? And, you know, has it been an easy process, or have there been learning lessons for you along the way to make sure your creativity is part of what you're delivering, but it's not what's getting delivered? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. You know, when it comes to all things creative, it's hard in the beginning, right? Because I felt like this is my baby, right? This company is my baby as well. And a lot of the things that people come to us for is our creativity and our thoughts, our, you know, insights and things like that. When I start bringing in more team members to kind of help me with all the creative work or even like implementation work and things like it, I was worried they're not going to understand how I'll be able to translate those vision through their own creative work. So what I tend to look for these days when I do hire designer is to really look at what style their design is, because you can really tell for some, you know, different creatives and designers, they have their unique way of, you know, building a certain type of design. You can kind of see their signature work or things like that. So I was able to kind of pick and choose the different style that still similar to what I would design for. And for those who can really understand, if I have a concept, can you take that concept and, you know, create an implementation from it? So for example, if I have a concept for a logo that, you know, that uses a maybe a dragonfly as a symbol, right? What does the dragonfly really symbolize? Maybe it, you know, symbolize change, growth, or whatever it is. How would they translate that concept into the actual design work or the actual design or visual implementation? I typically ask them to, you know, explain to me, like, what would you do if you are being presented with a brief or with that particular concept? And I was able to understand their process first. If their process is similar to what my process is, chances are the way they work is similar to how I work. So we can create, like, you know, trust building around it and then really collaborating together. So it becomes a little bit less about, you know, being perfectionism, right? Being perfection on really wanting everything to go my way, because I think in the beginning it was really hard for me to let go of that part. I wanted everything to be exactly my way, but for different designers, they kind of do it slightly differently, not exactly to how you do it, right? So letting go part of that control was very a little bit emotional for me, but also I have to make peace with it, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to grow. So when I start making peace with it and really trusting my designers, I know that they can, you know, take it to the next level on their own with my guidance, with my direction as well, and, you know, some creative ideas together. It becomes a collaboration rather than just me dictating every single thing.
That's really cool. And it's also like, must free up a lot of your time to then be creative in other ways. Are you sorry, I'm trying to like think of how I want to say this. So are you, because I know for me is like the moment I free up time creatively, I think of ways to fill it.
Yeah.
So already I'm like, oh, she freed up her time. Like, what else is she doing? You know, and
writing books,
right.
actually.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Oh, well then there it is. But, okay, now talk about that, please.
Yeah.
The book?
Well, just like, yeah, like, so now that you've freed up time, I know you have that, but like, what else have you done now that you've gotten this design time freed up? How has that, like, what have you been able to do to grow your business versus deliver stuff?
Oh, goodness. I still have a lot of things to do. I wish I can hire more, right? But, you know, having a lot of my time free up from the actual design work or design implementation, it gives me more time to dedicate towards building more connections, right? Building more new ideas that we can implement for the business. For example, I constantly thinking about, different ways for us to be more in front of our audience, whether it's through workshop or collaboration with, other agencies potentially, right? Where can we really have these different opportunities so that we can bring in more work coming into the business, or even, expanding our reach inside our network. So those are a lot of different things that I'm constantly working on. The business development part of it, book is part of it as well. In the past couple of years, I was tagging my husband along in the process. It's like, hey, honey, I need us to create a book. Will you join me in this journey? And he said, yeah. So we were able to collaborate on that together as well, because he also has his time freed up a little bit more from the development team, right? So having that really give us, some more flexibility around what else is important for us so that we can move the business forward beyond the actual work, beyond, still curating and cultivating that relationship with our network of people.
So what were some of like your biggest growing pains as the company was growing? Like, where were some roadblocks that you may have hit?
A few things that I felt was hard in the beginning is the network piece, right? I started off the company not knowing a lot of people here in Chicagoland area. So for me to build my first, base of network was a little bit challenging. And then as soon as I have this, 100, the first 100 people that I connected with, or, the first base layer of my network, I felt like at a point it just feels like I outgrew the network, right? Because a lot of time in the beginning, I work a lot with solopreneurs. And then once we start growing, we weren't really able to support solopreneurs as much as we could, mainly because of the price, pricing that we have has changed and it no longer, become affordable for a lot of them. So we needed to target slightly different types of people or different types of audience. And it was really hard for me trying to figure out, okay, now where do I go after being, so involved with the different communities here who are mainly with the solopreneurs community. Where do I need to go next? So I felt like that constantly changed for us. I would say change every 2 or 3 years for us, so that we can constantly trying to figure out where else should we either go or be at, in what type of either networking events, or what type of community should we be at. That's always a constant challenge for us, because I felt like once you once you're at a certain level in your business and you have certain type of, pricing structure, some of the previous clients that you have would no longer be able to, afford you, right? So you're constantly trying to figure out, okay, where should we really network next so that we can still have these, different opportunities coming our way. So I would say that's one of the, challenges that I have in the past. But now I think my challenges right now is around diversifying our income. So mainly we work with entrepreneurs or even like founders and business owners who have specific budget for their marketing, or they maybe already have their, I would just say like their investment ready for marketing purposes. But we're now also looking at potentially working with bigger corporation as their, tier 2 suppliers, right? So I think it's a new territory for me to just kind of learn like what else is out there, and also trying to be smart in terms of like diversifying our income and where that income stream will come.
That's really, I think those are both super interesting pieces. A, that diversification, but B, I've talked to a lot of business owners, and I've never, like, this is one of the first times I've heard somebody saying, I've outgrew my network. Yeah. And like, it's very true. It's like you're out hustling, you're, yeah, I'll do your website for you. Oh, you have $500? I'll take it, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm running in a hamster wheel. And I love that you really got very, unfortunately, sometimes, it's a great network, but you're right, it's not serving you. And you keep going to the same meetings and meeting the same people. That's starting to be insanity, right? Mm-hmm. How did you make that transition? Was it just like you said, finding the different groups, kind of having that awareness, like, all right, where I'm fishing right now, it's a small pond, I need to go to a bigger? Is that kind of where you went and just started looking around, or was there anything else to that process?
It was really confusing in the beginning, right? Because like you said earlier, you're so comfortable with your current network. But when you start realizing, okay, this is it, you need to go either out there, find new connection, or, maybe ask somebody else to introduce you with maybe different types of communities that I, haven't really either heard of or maybe even, get exposure to. So I felt like the beginning part of it can be maybe challenging is not the right word. What I would say it's mainly around you love this particular network, but at a point you're trying to also justify whether or not your time is going to be it's going to be worth it to spend with this particular network, right? Because at the end of the day, you do want to create more customers, but the right type of customers. So saying goodbye isn't really the right way to do it either, right? Because you still want to keep these connections that you have. So what I ended up doing is I actually reached out to a couple of people that I trust in my network, even though I outgrew them for that particular time. I did mention to them what my plan is, right? And asking them if they have connection in their particular network that they could introduce to me. So for example, I would ask them, hey, do you know somebody who maybe have a company with, let's just say $1 million or maybe a couple of million in revenue, who are maybe looking for help in either design work or web work? If they don't have that particular connection, that's totally cool. But oftentimes they would tell me, it's like, actually, I don't have that connection in my network right now. However, I know somebody that I follow either on LinkedIn or somebody that maybe I saw from a different webinar or at an event, something like that. That helped me understand like there are, some sort of network out there that I just need to, at least hear either the name or, research about it a bit more later so I can do my own research. But without having, those initial information, you might not know where to go, right? So I feel like, the more knowledge that you get or the more information that you can gather in the beginning, do so, and then you can always research further, and then you're always going to go down to the internet rabbit hole anyway. But having that initial sources of information is very critical.
I like it.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
And even just I hate to say the phrase leveling up, but at some point, like that's a strategic part of scaling in your business.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's next for you guys?
Oh, that's a good question. We're really trying to reach the next stage in our business, which is trying to hit our first 1 million of revenue. So hoping that will be attainable for us in the next couple of years. Lots of work that we got to do in order for us to get there, but I know we can certainly get there. And people keep telling us like, once you get to 1 million and then everything will be easy. But yes, I know that I still want to get there, and that's the hardest part. So that is next for us. We have a lot of things in the pipeline, mainly on, being more in the community, presenting ourselves more in the different types of organization that we're part of now that things are more opening up, right? I felt like events are places that we're going to be. You're probably going to see us speaking more at different types of events or conferences. So that essentially is the plan for now.
All right. I like it. Do you want to do rapid fire?
Absolutely.
All right. So we're doing rapid fire now.
Your favorite beverage?
Ooh, bubble tea.
Oh.
Any particular flavor?
Taro milk.
Oh, love it. The best advice you've ever been given?
Your network is your net worth.
You've taken that to heart very well.
I mean,
too.
seriously, that is, if we're not like bullet pointing this conversation, there it is.
Yeah.
Your network is your, I love that. Okay. Dinner, if you could have dinner with anyone.
2 people. One, Mike Shinoda, And then the second one would be Michelle Yeoh.
Awesome.
Oh, okay.
I love that lately everybody's been calling out people that
Nobody's
are
ever
so
called out
unique,
before,
but no
yeah.
one said before. Okay. And what's your morning routine look like?
Wake up, feed my kid, and then go shower.
Perfect.
Hey, we were just having a conversation. The guest before you had a 2-year-old, and it's like, yeah, I mean, the routine revolves around the child, so it is like a crapshoot every morning you wake up. Like you have intention for something, but like, yeah,
Am I dedicated?
good luck. Yeah.
And what are you currently reading?
Secret Tradecraft of Elite Advisor by David C. Baker.
Oh, I have
Yeah,
to write
it's
this
this
down.
one. Not sure if you can see it.
Yeah, they'll see it on the video. Okay, I'll have to see that.
Awesome. And a top bucket list item.
I want to go to Japan.
Yes, that's a great one. And what's a guilty pleasure?
Mm. Oh, goodness. Okay. Guilty pleasure. I have a lot. Okay, let me think. Give me 1 second. I would say cheesecakes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you have to feel guilty about that one.
No. No.
Can you, before we like close out and you tell us where to go for your business, what is the history behind your name? Like what's the origin of it? Like I would love to, because it's a very unusual business name. So where did you come up with that, and what's the meaning behind it?
Okay. The name of the business is something I completely made up when I was in high school during a biology class. Now, the essence of the story is that I was really wanting to challenge myself to do something that other people, mostly mainly smart people could do. For example, at the biology class, I was reading all the scientists creating names for different creatures or, whatever else. So, scientists get to name a lot of cool things. And I thought to myself, okay, if scientists can create, new name for something like this, why can't I do it? So I think that was something that I didn't realize I have it in me, because it's constantly about challenging myself that if somebody else can do it, you can do it too. And that's how the name was born, because I was honestly just doodling it because I was bored. But it ended up becoming a name for my own company, 10 years later.
Wow.
I love it.
That's really good.
All right. So if somebody wanted to connect with you or find out more info on you, where should they go?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always active on LinkedIn, or you can go check out my website, cklph.com.
All right. Awesome. And we'll have all that on our notes page over at firstarrivelast-to-leave.com. Ari, thank you so much for hanging with us today. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, it was super fun. Thank you.